Resolution 74. Concurrent resolution expressing the sense of Congress regarding the need for additional research into the chronic neurological condition hydrocephalus and for other purposes.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from New Jersey, Mr. Pallone, and the gentleman from Oklahoma, Mr. Sullivan, each will control 20 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from New Jersey.
Mr. Speaker, again, I would ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous material on the bill that we're considering.
Without objection, so ordered.
And I would yield myself such time as I may consume.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of H-Con Res 74, expressing the sense of Congress regarding the need for additional research into the chronic neurological condition hydrocephalus. Hydrocephalus simply means water on the brain. The term defines a condition characterized by an excessive accumulation of fluid in the brain. This buildup of fluid inside the skull causes the brain to swell, infections of the nervous system, lesions or tumors of the brain or spinal cord, and decreased mental function, among other symptoms. The causes of hydrocephalus are not all well understood. It may result from genetic inheritance of developmental disorders. Other possible causes include complications of premature birth, diseases or infections caught before birth, and injury before, during, or after childbirth. Hydrocephalus is believed to affect approximately 1 in every 500 children. At present, most of these cases are diagnosed prenatally at the time of delivery or in early childhood. Advances in diagnostic imaging technology allow more accurate diagnosis in individuals with atypical presentations, including adults with conditions such as normal pressure hydrocephalus. The National Institute of Neurological Disorders and Stroke, a part of the National Institutes of Health, is the leading supporter of research on hydrocephalus within the federal government. NINDS works collaboratively with other institutes at NIH to further research on the influence of hydrocephalus on development and on the more general issue of the effect of early brain injury. The knowledge gained from this research will foster hope for new methods to treat and prevent developmental brain disorders such as hydrocephalus. And I'd like to thank Congressman Mike Thompson of California for his work to bring this resolution before us today, and I would urge my colleagues to support H-Con Resolution 74. And Mr. Speaker, at this time I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Oklahoma.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself as much time as I may consume.
Without objection.
I stand here today in support of this resolution, House Concurrent Resolution 74, addressing the need for additional research into the chronic neurological condition hydrocephalus. This disease, for which there is no cure, affects an estimated 1 million Americans. Often the symptoms of hydrocephalus are confused with those of dementia, Alzheimer's disease, or Parkinson's disease. When the disease is properly identified, people with hydrocephalus are able to live full and productive lives. The National Institute of Health has responded to the needs of the hydrocephalus community by working with scientists and researchers to organize a conference in September of 2005 called Hydrocephalus Myths, New Facts, and Clear Direction. Demonstrating the need for collaborative research at the National Institute of Health, 7 institutes were able to work together and initiate a new research and treatment efforts for hydrocephalus. I thank Representative Mike Thompson for his work in bringing awareness to this issue. Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
The gentleman from New Jersey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to yield 5 minutes to the sponsor of the H-Con Res, Mr. Thompson of California.
The gentleman from California is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the gentleman for yielding. I'm here today to ask all of my colleagues to support this resolution. Hydrocephalus is an abnormal buildup of fluid in the brain, and it affects nearly 1 million Americans. Without treatment, hydrocephalus is fatal, but when treated, most people with this condition can lead full and productive lives. I became aware of this condition through a constituent and a friend of mine, Cynthia Solomon, who has a family member who suffers from this condition. Cynthia struggled to find information about hydrocephalus and wanted to connect with other affected families. So she co-founded the first patient advocacy organization for this condition, the Hydrocephalus Association. As anyone who has been affected by this condition can tell you, the symptoms are many and they vary from person to person. Excess fluid in the brain can cause head enlargement, blurred vision, seizures, learning disabilities, and impaired physical development. In older adults, symptoms can mimic dementia, Alzheimer's disease, and Parkinson's disease, often leading to a misdiagnosis and a delay in receiving critical and proper treatment. Doctors don't yet understand the specific causes of hydrocephalus. However, the current treatment was developed back in 1952 and involves surgically inserting a shunt into the brain. And this carries serious risk of shunt failure, infection, and obstructions. Overdrainage is also a threat. This can trigger a vertical collapse causing blood vessels to tear and possibly resulting in a subdural hematoma. Improvement on this treatment is long overdue, and with additional research, we can make it happen. The National Institutes of Health recognize this need and recently organized their first ever conference on hydrocephalus. This has resulted in efforts to initiate new collaborative research projects and an expansion of their focus on the development of new treatments. This resolution commends the NIH for their action and encourages them to continue their collaborative efforts. It also calls for additional research into this serious condition. However, we cannot depend solely on federal efforts to expand awareness about hydrocephalus. I commend the Hydrocephalus Association and other groups for their commitment to patient advocacy and public education. Partnerships between these groups, healthcare providers, and the government will bring us closer to our common goal, improved treatment of this condition. I'd like to say a special thanks to Dory Kranz, who's the current director of the Hydrocephalus Association, for her help in putting this resolution together and her ongoing work in this regard. And I ask my colleagues for their support of this resolution so we can further research into this very serious and important condition, and we can bring about improved treatment to those individuals who are affected by this very, very serious and debilitating condition. I yield back the balance of my time, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman from New Jersey.
Mr. Speaker, I have no additional requests for time, and so I would yield back the balance of my time.
The question is, will the House suspend the rules and agree to House Concurrent Resolution 74? Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the Chair, 2/3 being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended and the concurrent resolution is agreed to, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Pursuant to Clause 12A of Rule 1, the Chair declares the House in recess until approximately 6:30 p.m. today.